5, 6, 7. Time to go, though.
I played so much music before we got here, and then I couldn't get any of my audio to work. And I was like, I thought everything was perfect. And I had I was played for half an hour before we got on here. And now it's all gone. So, welcome to silence.
All I know is that when I first logged in, there were like a lot of lights happening in the background. You were very much in the zone.
I was being abducted by art. Art and music had captured me and taken me away to the mothership.
Yeah. My art got abducted.
Did it fall down?
No, it was a very elaborate heist. It's actually they approached me on Netflix for a special of how my really expensive art got stolen.
Guys, my kid had his first gallery show today. We went to the local art community building and we saw the beautiful landscapes that he had painted and ate grocery store chocolate chip cookies. There were a lot of people there. Everybody wanted to get a picture of themselves with their own art. Number one. Number two, I do worse art than children. That was very apparent. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We can't talk about art, Terry.
I have to get this out. I have to release
this. Get it out, please.
All I can hear is all that's going through my head on a loop is in the vocal tone or the sound of the song "Blinded by the Light" is you singing "Captured by the Art."
Captured by the art, wrapped up like a deuce, like that. We're gonna get another DCMA takedown request for my flawless rendition of Manfred Mann's "Blinded by the Light."
Is that going on the playlist?
Yeah, 100,000%. Terry, you had a technical question for Tim. That's why we had him back. But I have questions about your question. So can you get it out with Tim? I couldn't even pronounce the thing that you wanted to talk to him about.
I mean, he is one of our favorite guests, but I feel like we should introduce him again, right?
Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
I think you should, because I usually have to. So.
Welcome to the Happy Job podcast. Sorry, welcome. I can't even get the name right. Welcome to the Happy Job Records podcast with Terry Miller and Russ Waddell. Today, our guest is Tim Dawson, robot surgeon. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Does this satisfy you, Terry? Are you happy now?
I mean, it could just be me, but it felt a little bit inauthentic. Just a little bit.
I'm not redoing it.
All right. Tim.
I want it to be known before we start that thank you all for bringing me on for a topic that I know so much about. I Wikipedia'd it right before we started just so that I knew what was about to happen.
Can you help me pronounce this word?
How do you spell it?
Epidemiology.
Epidemiology. See,
I can say that one.
Epedemiology is what I usually try to say.
No,
do you really?
That's not right.
It's not right. Yeah, it's terribly wrong.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Epidemiology. Why don't you give us like the elevator pitch on what epidemiology is?
Well, hold the phone. Hold on, Tim. Terry, what are you doing to this guy? He just said that he had to go read the Wikipedia page before he
I can tell you what it said on that page.
All right, go.
No,
tell us.
He's got more. He's got more.
It's Greek. It's a Greek word. It's the study of things that are upon humans, things that come upon us. So basically, it originally started out as the study of diseases that we acquire. And so that was different than endemic diseases, which were diseases that were already part of a population, which we would think of as like hypertension, etc. now. And this was more of like infectious disease study, but that's evolved over time. And now basically epidemiology just means studying diseases of our population and how often they occur and kind of why, etc.
I take back what I said. That was a really good explanation. That did not sound like you just Wikipedia'd it.
See, he's got the juice. He's playing modest. Well, here's what I want to know. If it has its origins in communicable disease, pathogens, whatever, that feels like an entirely different thing. That feels very much more linear than what it is today. Is there, and my whole position on, I really just wanted to have you on to talk about this, to ask you this one question. So,
Wait, that was the question?
no, this that I'm getting ready to ask.
Oh, good. I thought you'd already asked, which was
No,
confusing to me.
well, you know, I have a practice of like lots of words to say something I could say in one sentence. So
Tim is shaking with laughter, silent, polite laughter.
yeah, he's agreeing with me. He's agreeing with my assertion. Tim, on the totem pole
of scientists, where are the epidemiologists?
Yeah, where do they rank? No, just out of curiosity, like I'm curious about like the studies today. I'm assuming hypertension. There are a number of these things that are being tracked. Obesity surely has got to be in there. Is there any? I feel like there's linearity in communicable disease. Either you have the bug or you do not have the bug. With some of these things, I feel like these are such non-linear things. Yes, there's a trend that people are fatter today than they were X numbers of years ago. The why is what I'm interested in. Can we draw linear conclusions about some of the things that epidemiology is focused on today? Can we draw linear conclusions about them?
Not really. I mean, so exactly what you're saying. So the problem with studying diseases that you're talking about are they're so multifactorial. There's no way to do a randomized control trial about any of those things you just mentioned. So, when COVID came around, you have it, you don't. You study the things. You can kind of, even in a population model, there's one thing you're looking at. In a lot of these non-communicable diseases, it's almost the opposite. So you have to take a patient that has that disease and work backwards towards all the factors that cause that disease, but it's never going to be one cause and effect. It's not going to be like you were exposed to this disease at this time, therefore you got this thing. It's always going to be there are multiple factors. Which one is more important? Which ones can we change? Which ones can we not change? And with that clearly muddies the water. I think that makes studying all these things much harder. And something that you brought up in a previous talk, it also makes it hard to, I don't want to say monetize that, but it also makes it hard to pick one thing that we can focus on and can get funding to attack that one cause of whatever these non-communicable diseases are. And so
can I try and rephrase this to make sure I'm following correctly? This is like saying Russ eats ice cream for dinner and never exercises. Terry is rich and exercises all the time, but is also very old. Why did one of them die from COVID and the other one didn't? Oh, sorry, not COVID. Why did one of them die from heart disease and the other one didn't?
Yeah.
Right.
And like you can't unentangle all those different things that I said.
Right. And it's not even why did one of them, it's not even that easy of an endpoint, right? It's not even why did one of them die from heart disease and one of them didn't. It's why does one of them have heart disease, one of them doesn't, or why does one of them have significant heart disease that's affecting their health and one of them has heart disease and it's not. And so even within the definition of that one diagnosis, there's a huge spectrum within that one thing. It's not a yes or no.
How far into medical school were you before these types of things became very apparent to you that they were a problem that didn't have good solutions?
Pretty early. I mean, so the funny thing is about when you want to become a doctor, right? You're like, okay, I just want to become a doctor. You're going through the steps, you're doing the things, and then you kind of have never been, especially for me, I didn't have a basic science undergrad degree. And so you kind of assume that like doctors know all the things and like, medicine in this year, we've got most of it figured out. And then you go to medical school and you completely realize like that is not the case. I mean, this is all a moving target. And not to say like don't believe anything your doctor says. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying you
that's
learn
what I heard.
You learn that there's not like, you don't study for a test and you say like, okay, this causes hypertension, this causes diabetes, or this is how you treat this one common disease that we all have heard of. I mean, there's multiple ways to get it and to treat it.
So, Tim, is it safe to say that you can't even land on the same heart disease diagnosis? Like there are multiple heart disease diagnoses. Like it's not one to, hypertension. If someone has high blood pressure, that's a thing, but that's not all of heart disease. Is that a safe
Right, and
assumption?
it's not even the thing, right? So like everyone is focused on hypertension, like the actual hypertension, so high blood pressure itself is not acutely dangerous unless it's very, very high, can cause stroke. So you're actually, when you're very focused on hypertension, that's a risk factor. That's a risk factor modification. So we're actually trying to go take a step back. What you're worried about is heart attacks, heart failure, strokes, those type of things. And you're taking a step back from those things that are, if you've made it that far, you're too late. And so then we move it a step back from that and say, okay, we're going to focus on hypertension, which is really a precursor to the real things that we're actually worried about.
So in the face of all this diagnostic difficulty and ambiguity, you had a choice to make, and you said to yourself, Tim, I need to get to some clarity. I need to go into the field where the answer is to chop it out of their body.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's actually not that far from the truth.
I relate to that. Not the chopping out of the body, but just give me something specific.
So here's the other part of that, of why surgery is the best, is because you have a patient come into your office with hypertension, okay? And like you said, there's a million risk factors, including things they did to themselves, they did not do to themselves. So there's that part of it. Then there's 100 treatment options. And so there's things that they can do, there's things that you can do. And then also the needle of these things that you're going to move the outcome is so small. And so you're seeing hundreds of patients and talking about hundreds of treatment options and spending lots of time for usually margins of benefit. Now, again, if you have someone who has high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, all the things, okay, they're a high risk person, right? Okay, that you really need to focus on these. But there's a lot of people who, myself, I have high blood pressure, but I'm otherwise relatively healthy. And so you're still spending that time to talk to that person about these things that may or may not actually affect the outcome of their life or this thing progressing to someone else. And so it takes a lot of time for a benefit that you may never see. You see a lot of failures. That's how it's set up, right? If you're a family medicine doctor, who comes to your office? Not the healthy people. So you don't see a lot of the success stories, and so you're kind of seeing the backside of it. For me, it's usually the opposite. Someone comes in, they usually have a relatively clear diagnosis, and they have a much smaller number of options, and I have a short amount of time to do my intervention, have an outcome, and then move on to the next person.
And this is a silly or stupid question, or at least an uninformed one, but I mean, you're getting referrals from family doctor. So I go to the family doctor for my ice cream addiction, and then they're like, you need to go to Tim because your spleen's got to go because that's where ice cream addiction lives.
If it was that easy.
It feels like it's never that easy on anything.
Yeah, mostly it'll be like they come into them for belly pain, and then they find out their gallbladder's bad, and then they send them to me. And so, I mean, that's an example, right? So for them, they're the family medicine doctor. You have someone show up to their office and say, I have belly pain. And they have a list of 1,000 things that causes belly pain. It's their job to figure out what's causing that. And if they happen to land on the handful that are surgically treatable, then they come to me with a diagnosis already. So they come to me saying, this person has belly pain and I think it's their gallbladder. And so I've immediately taken 1,000 things that can cause this down to the thing the primary care doctor already thinks is causing that. And all I have to do is say, yes, I agree, or I don't agree. And even if I don't agree, then there's still only maybe a handful of things that are surgically treatable that I can diagnose. So then I rule those things out, and then I say that's nothing we can surgically correct.
How many days a week are you working?
5 when I'm not on call.
And so like, do you have how close, and let me ask it this way. How close to a 9 to 5 do you have?
Nowhere close.
It's more like
It's a okay. Here's why I can't answer that. So for me, call completely changes the dynamic of my schedule. And so if you took my call responsibilities, which call means emergency surgeries that come in through the emergency department, patients that are admitted to the hospital that need emergency surgeries, inpatient surgeries. So if you took that off of my schedule is actually really light. So I'm actually scheduled to be there less than 40 hours. Like I have a half day Monday, half day Tuesday, full day every other Wednesday, half day Thursday, full day every Friday.
and then this giant pile of extra stuff on
And
top
this
of that.
giant pile of extra stuff. And so if I don't have a lot of call, I might have a week where I work 20 hours, 30 hours. But if I have a lot of call, I could easily work 80, 100 hours.
And how much of that is surgerying?
My job in general, the call stuff.
I don't know, like just like when you're working, is it 89%, scrubbing in and chopping people's gallbladders and other stuff?
No, it'd be half, about 50-50.
It's not bad. Because the surgery is the part you like, right?
Right.
Yeah.
When did medicine for you, Tim, become non-idealistic and become a car wash? I'm sure it's a car wash for you.
Such a loaded and presumptuous question. I love it.
I don't feel like it's a car wash.
That's good.
I don't feel like it's a car wash, but also I am much more realistic about the whole process than I was before. But I think the second that you feel like it's a car wash, you wouldn't do this anymore. It's just not worth the. It's just not that's the only real benefit we get from this crazy, hectic, stressful job. It's the non-car wash portion. It's the human interaction, the good outcomes, the patients that come to you that are happy. If it wasn't for that, like no one would do this.
Is there any path to a less high stress, crazy hours, tons of medical school student loan debt, malpractice insurance? Like, is there a kinder, gentler way for doctors and surgeons and other medical professionals?
All of them besides the one that I chose.
No.
Do you mean so? You mean to so the closest thing to my job that you could do that would remove a lot of the things that I'm talking about, a lot of the like time away from work where you're thinking about work, a lot of the stress as far as decision making, it would be to be like a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant. So they go to depending on the track. I mean, just to simplify it, they go to usually 4 years of undergrad and then like a master's program, like a couple years after that. Versus I did 4 of undergrad, 4 of medical school, 5 of residency. So a lot shorter. And they work on, not underneath, but they work with a physician to support that physician. And so they don't have to do a lot of the extra work as far as like the writing extra notes, putting a lot of the orders, decision making. They're kind of there. They get to do the things that I want to do. But the compensation is significantly less. And so it's one of those trade-offs. And also you're working for someone. So you've got to be okay with that, of not leading the ship. Being the captain is stressful. So it's one of the, do you want to be driving the boat and deal with all the stress that comes with that? Or do you not want to do that and be okay with just being a very helpful assistant?
Are you familiar with the stereotype that surgeons often buy boats? Is that why you use the boat captain analogy?
Right. That's the only reason why I thought of that.
But I can't think of. You're going to be on the boat, and all you're going to be doing is thinking about work and how stressed your job is, and like your hypertension and whether that's under control. You can't enjoy the boat.
No.
I feel like I don't know. I don't know what my point was. I've talked to an okay number of doctors, surgeons, similar jobs, and of those, like once they're a full blown doctor, other than the dentists and orthodontists, most of these people feel the same stuff. I mean, not to the degree that you're talking about, but things like the weightiness of decision making that never goes away, the gravity of patient care and patient outcomes. I mean, that stuff is like sits heavy on everybody,
Right.
including Terry and the critical outcomes of his medical data science.
So back to epidemiology. Obesity. Do you have a swag? Why has it exploded?
I mean, we all know that. You don't need me to answer that question. I mean, it's just people eat terribly. People aren't active. It's all our lifestyle is completely set up to cause this, to do this, and I think it's not accepted, but it's looked at as being okay. It's a little bit normalized, and so I think it will continue to get worse. The I'm not a bariatric surgeon, but we do have a bariatric surgeon that works with us, and so I mean they're busier and busier. There's more people that need surgery for weight loss. I was just looking at some articles earlier about all these new weight loss drugs that are coming out. I mean, those are completely taking over everything by storm. So it's fun. We're completely treating this the same way that we've treated every other disease process like this in the past. I mean, it's going the exact same route. First is lifestyle modification, then we're like, oh, this is just a fact of life in America. This is what's going to happen. How are we going to treat it? We're going to treat it with surgery. Okay, that seems extreme. We're going to find medications that are going to treat it, and it's just the same process over and over.
I loved him. I love him.
It sounds like it was a strict parallel between how hearts went and then how our fat selves went. Terry, why are you so worried about everybody else being fat? Like you don't have a problem with that personally. It's just not going to be an issue for you.
No, but so many public policy things are downstream of poor metabolic health. It's insane. And it's insane that the approach to this is first to cut and then to medicate. And it's way cheaper and it has way more sort of peripheral benefits or ancillary benefits to modify one's lifestyle than to cut or to medicate in this instance, probably a bunch of instances. And so many things downstream are impacted by poor metabolic health from a budgeting perspective. It's a huge issue. It drives me insane.
Tim, how familiar are you with Terry's health regimen and routine?
I've listened to the podcast.
Oh, geez, that familiar. What in your professional medical opinion?
Oh no,
probably not surgical. I don't think this is surgery related. In your medical opinion, how much of a lifestyle change would Terry have to make to be the equivalent of, I don't know, somebody who is 20 pounds overweight, losing 20 pounds of weight to get back to like a good baseline? Is that question clear?
So you're saying how much of a Terry would you have to be to lose 20 pounds?
No, I'm saying for the equivalent suffering that you ask a typical 20-pound like I weigh 204 or 5 pounds, and I'm 5'11" 3/4, 6 foot with my hair, and that is obese but not morbidly obese. So I should weigh like 175, and I mean, not just ice cream, but a lot of other stuff in the ice cream family of foods is a major part of my diet. I got 2 enchiladas in me right now, plus a marg. Like there are a lot of low hanging fruits for me. What's like for me to lose 20 pounds would be a great deal of suffering, like anguish, mental suffering, emotional suffering. And that's just to lose that 20 pounds. It would probably take me 18 months. It took me a long time to put it on. It would take me a long time to get it back off again. I would have to get up and do things. I'd probably have to get a standing desk and a Peloton, financial suffering. Like it's really a long list to cut these 20 pounds to be back to normal weight. How would Terry have what would Terry have to do to get the same amount of suffering that I'd have to go through to lose 20 pounds?
I don't know, but I do want to comment on something you said. So I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that story or that comment, I think therein lies one of the main problems is that I think we don't understand what healthy weight loss is and what causes weight gain.
Can we be more specific? Are you talking about medicine doesn't know or
No, us,
society doesn't
no,
know?
yeah, us as a society. I think we've completely lost that connection with health and eating and exercise to really understand. And we have so many bad diets and so many bad things out there that we're told, and I think it's completely lost. So in a nutshell, it's more complex than this. But if you want to break it down, it's calories in versus calories out. So when I learned this in medical school, and it kind of blew my mind that it was that simple. And again, it's not exactly as simple as this, but the there's a certain threshold that if you eat over that number of calories, you're going to gain weight, and there's a certain threshold if you eat less or you burn more calories than that, you're going to lose weight. And I think if I remember, it's like 3,500 calories maybe in excess is a pound. And so if you eat, I think that's right. You'd have to fact check me on that. But basically, if you eat that much, you're going to gain a pound over that much time. The problem with that is we're all focused on like, this has to happen right now. So like if I'm going to lose weight, I have to lose weight tomorrow. And with that comes suffering. And that is not the case at all. What it is we have a very poor understanding of the high calorie foods that we eat in our day-to-day diet that we're used to. And so it's funny. I was literally having this conversation with my mom tonight as we're talking about all this stuff. Like a Jimmy John sandwich. Like if you look up,
you should definitely not eat.
If you look up the calories in a Jimmy John sandwich, right, it's astronomical. So like it's bread, meat, vegetables. Like if you ask 80% of people, like, is this a healthy food? They would say yes, because it's not a bag of potato chips, or it's not a pie. Okay.
Could you name a sandwich on their menu right now?
The number 12, Beach Club. Beach Club's my go-to. I love me some Jimmy John's.
Terry, you got one?
Oh, Beach Club's good. The ultimate porker, I've had a time or two. Now I get them in lettuce wraps, but I do eat at Jimmy John's.
Oh no!
So what I'm saying, so there's two approaches, right? There's the total approach. So Terry's got like all in, right? He's like, that's how I'm always going to be. That's how he's going to maintain his weight. He's like, I'm always going to be conscious and thinking about it, and I'm going to have a healthy lifestyle to eat. That works for him.
He's going to be Mr. Rogers, who weighed the same for 46 years of his life or something like that.
That doesn't work for you. Like if you want to eat your ice cream, like that's completely fine. Like you eat your ice cream, you have your enchiladas and margs, but like that has a measurable calorie intake is what I'm saying. So like if you eat 2 enchiladas and a margarita, then like you should not be using my Peloton headphones for this podcast and go like ride a Peloton, or like then tomorrow, like you make up for those calories. So then eat like very healthy tomorrow. Like every day doesn't have to be perfect. Like if you eat 2 enchiladas and a margarita, doesn't mean you're going to be obese. But those are real calories that like won't go away. I mean, it's a more holistic approach than just saying like these foods are bad, these foods are good. You have to never eat a bean again, and you're going to lose 200 pounds. And if that makes sense.
One more epidemiology question. I'm just happy that I can pronounce it. And then Russ, take us out. Directing traffic. Tim, I am curious if you studied seed oils or you have a perspective on seed oils, and are they toxic? Is there any sort of macro trends from an epidemiological standpoint associated with poor metabolic health and our over reliance on seed oils? So like canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, some of those highly refined processed seed oils.
So you'd have to take me back like 10 years into medical school to like really dive into this question. There are fats in general that are good fats and bad fats for a multitude of reasons. There are some that we think are inflammatory. There are some that we think are anti-inflammatory. Part of it is how do you cook with them? If you're cooking these oils above their smoke point, they can be carcinogenic. So it's very complex as far as what oil you're using or not. What I will say is when you're asking that question, I think you have an answer that you think is true or something even that you've read. And so, and I haven't. And so, especially as a doctor, so I get these questions a lot. So like in the office, right, they'll come in and see me for something and they'll ask me about a supplement. And I'm definitely not anti-supplement or not anti, this oil is good, this oil is bad. What I hesitate to say is I'm not an expert on all these on these things, and it's very hard to become an expert on these things. And I think as long as the data is real, the science is real, the studies are real, then there are a lot of things that we as doctors, we as the general population don't know or don't understand because we've never looked at the science or the data. But what I see a lot is there might be like whatever the Facebook post is of the week. And it might be like, if you never eat olive oil again, you're going to live to be 100, and it will get propagated. And it's sometimes might be based on fact. Sometimes might be not, might be one tiny study, might be no study at all. Or it might be a hugely powered randomized control trial. And like, this is something we should all know. And it's just hard to parse that out with the time that I have in my current life. And so I try not to comment on the specifics of things like this.
Love it. Love it.
I can wrap that up. Science is not that far out of reach. It's not on a pedestal. It doesn't belong to your doctor. Science is all around you, and there's a lot we don't know. And there are a lot of ways to educate yourself. And generally speaking, the more tempered the views you get and the less immediately promising and, dare I say, snake oily they seem, the better you'll be. And anyone can equip themselves with that. Like Tim and I could become data scientists over time by learning the stuff that Terry went and learned. And I don't think that necessarily applies to robotic surgery, but the basics of how you can ask a question of your robotic surgeon or your GP, like you can get yourself to where you are comfortable asking the questions.
I think that is one of the bigger overarching issues. Talking about all these things is that I don't necessarily think that's true. I don't think a lot of people in the population are capable of educating themselves about these topics. I think there's so much misinformation out there, and people don't understand how to figure that out, how to know what a real data source is, what a real scientific study is, to actually read a scientific paper and actually look at the data and look at the results and say, what does this actually mean? Does this apply to me or not? I mean, that's pretty high level. And I think there are a lot of intermediaries that are taking the high level stuff and then plugging that in with like a couple facts here or there, or like saying, I know this for this reason. And then people take that and run with that as being fact or science, which is not the same thing. I mean, if you don't look at the paper, at the actual data in the study, it's not fact. And I think that's completely lost in the way that we get our information now.
Next time you come back, Science me. That's the topic.
Hold on. I want to say first, I that is awesome and fully agree. And I've made the wild comment before that reading peer-reviewed papers, scientific papers, should be a required college class. At least we could get people going to college have the ability to read peer-reviewed papers. Russ, I want to compliment you. And I've thought about this since you said it. Your analogy for my non-linearity question in epidemiology was effing brilliant. So there's that.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
Tim,
I feel closer to science today.
Tim, when do we get you back?
Whenever, let me know.
Whenever he's not on call.
Yeah. No, we want him on call. I think that's the episode to have.
Oh my gosh. It'd be a lot more dramatic.
Have him like under the knife.
Beat him, sweat. try not. If your hands shake while you're under the hood from laughter, does the robot also shake? And
it actually cancels out your tremor. So that's another benefit of the robot. Add that to the pros column.
I think I know enough about robots to know that was the case before I even asked the question. Thank you guys. See you next time.
Fun stuff. Take care, guys.